Hi everyone, Maria here, and welcome to Season 1 of GUTT Talks, GGUTT, a podcast focusing on business and tech for good, experience design, and gut feelings. What you're doing it for free because you can, because you want to add value, and this is your contribution to the world and the society. Now, some other people might be doing something similar or close enough, but they do it for a living. Do you consider that, I'm not saying you're going to put some people out of pocket, but would you represent a certain risk for some people because what you're doing is valuable and free at the same time?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting grey area. And I think this, to me, you're asking two questions here. One element is, am I putting people out of business by doing what they do and charge for free? My feeling is it's impossible. The market is so big. If you bring value, you see, I paid for things and had no value from it, right? So one of the elements of this, and this is the second question I feel like is being talked about here, is like, what is the value of free, right? And so to me, I've run businesses in the past where I've charged a service fee, right? And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. People pay you for your knowledge, right? And then I've also had a business where I've taken equity in a company because I've given advice, right? Again, fair enough, right? But every time I've done that, personally, I feel like I've missed out a certain segment of society. Those that don't have money to pay for me, or the people that don't have a company with equity that's worth anything. I would say millions of people that need help that can't afford those two things. And I know, I can hear on the other end, of the line that the kind of people that sell courses and stuff saying, well, it's only $59. Yes, but that can often mean, I know people in England that can't afford to pay for the internet. So it's £30 a month on average for the internet in the UK. That is equivalent to 2 or 3 meals for families on a budget. Yeah, so they either don't eat for 3 days or they have the internet. And they're literally making a decision not to have the internet. How do I know this? Because I see them at libraries trying to get online, right? So they don't have the internet. So when someone's saying, oh, no one values anything unless you pay for it, £59 isn't much, they haven't lived in an environment that's real, And we get people from all over the world, by the way. I mean, England's meant to be a modern society, but there's a huge amount of people here that are living like that. But, you start going further afield and, you start going to some of the African countries and stuff. They're literally living on $1 a day, right? So, and I don't feel like they deserve to be missed out. And so they don't want to service that market, the group that you just kind of mentioned, because they've got no money. So I'm servicing it. And so I'm not eating their pie because there will always be people that are willing to throw money at a course. I'm just saying, I'm saying to people generally, they don't need to pay for a course, but I'm not saying don't pay for a course, right? If you think it could bring you value, then do it. And there are a lot of people out there, in fairness, that actually bring good value. I can think of a few that actually bring good value to people, even though you pay them. I think it can bring value. So that's why I don't like it when people say free has no value, because I can honestly say free has the most amount of value. When you give someone something that's useful and you give it to them free, when they can't afford it, it's the most valuable thing you can ever give them.
I agree on that one. I also think free has value, and actually people who also charge do lots of things for free.
Yeah.
And then make money on the back end.
Yeah, because I'm just cautious of scams. That's all I'm cautious of ever endorsing, because because free leads to like a funnel, right? For a lot of people, and a funnel leads to like £59 or $59, and now upgrade to $2,000. Now give me your life savings with false promises, and I don't want. I want to help people avoid that trap. And so I'm not that I'm judging, but I want people to be aware of it at least, and don't have the suspicion of free. I kind of want to break the image that free is actually a trick, right? Like I've got my book coming out and someone approached me and they said, Simon, give the book away for free and charge for shipping. So the book's free, but it's all a trick, and I just kind of want to avoid all that stuff, I think I give the book for free to help people for free. That's it. No catch, no funnel I'm going to put you into and blast you 100 times until you buy something, right? It just feels like we've gone the wrong way on sales. Instead of like just trusting people and connecting authentically, all about getting people into a funnel and upselling them. So I'm trying this model free, and so far so good, because it's servicing a group that had never been helped before.
Now, based on the funnel thing you mentioned, this you touched on one of my frustrations, basically, because I like authenticity and transparency from the beginning. So if you want to sell something, just say it.
Yep.
Don't just make me click by mistake and put my credit card details to hopefully make me, go through the wrong route because the button is yellow or green or whatever to move forward. Okay, now that's the question I wanted to ask you, because I know that I've seen the value you provide, and it's free, but it's great and valuable. And I also learn, everyone can learn. So my question was just, you're bringing so much value, some other people might, not like it, but I get your point in that sense. And you touched on libraries, which is something I want to ask you about, because you have a video, I've done some research, and you have a video where you say, you tell people not to read books, including your books, but at the same time, you want to save libraries. And this is where you're recording your podcasts from. And libraries are initially aimed to disseminate information, if we want to put it that way. So how do you envision the future of libraries?
So I think the UK in particular, libraries have a lot of parallel with how I think about the world, right? And so libraries are the only place in the UK where you can walk in and have the internet for free and get knowledge. We'll come back to books in a minute. Get knowledge, and no one's going to ask you for anything in return, right? That is my company philosophy. You can walk into our environment, you can take what content is useful to you, and you can walk out the door and never give us anything, not even a like. We won't mind. And that's what libraries represent in the UK. And actually, majority of the time around the world, that's what they represent: a community, a touch point that isn't after anything. And so the philosophy of a library, to me, I really resonate with it. And I think it's all actually, ironically, it sounds like an old infrastructure, but it's still ahead of its time. You walk in, I don't know you. You say you want to take this knowledge away. You sign a bit of paper saying you'll bring it back, you'll give back, and you take it away. We don't do any credit checks. We don't double check your address with a validation. We don't follow you down the road 3 days later to find out where our book went. We trust you, right? And I feel like the libraries, in that sense, it's not a place where books live. To me, it's a community and a place where knowledge lives. So the update for a library, in my mind, is really to put knowledge there in all formats. So one format is my podcast show. People want to listen to real life. The people I interview, pretty much all of them have books. They tell everything you need to know in an hour in a podcast for free. So, you don't need to buy their book. You don't need to buy my book. And I think that's important. I don't want anyone to walk into my library and have to buy a book. That's not what libraries do. You walk into the library and you pick off the shelf what's useful to you, yeah? And so, yes, it used to be just books. We don't need to restrict it to that anymore. It can be all sorts of different types of content. And so I think the library to me is a symbol of the mythology. And I think the way we're going to save libraries is to make sure that we turn them into something useful going forward. And I think that something useful going forward is a free WeWorks, without the co-working space piece, the community piece, a place where people can come to get the internet, a place where people can come to get knowledge. And in some cases, like we are doing right now, you can zoom into some of our libraries, book a 15-minute slot with a successful entrepreneur, and then zoom in and get that knowledge from that entrepreneur for 15 minutes and zoom out again. It doesn't have to be a physical place, although I still like a physical environment. COVID's behind us. I think a physical environment adds a lot of value, but that's not the key. The key is access to free knowledge from things that bring a lot of value for free. And that's the future of libraries, I think, giving that access to, particularly to people that want to become entrepreneurs. And with the shared economy, the gig economy and AI coming, we all need to learn to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and you're talking about libraries, communities, and radio, and your Clubhouse room is called Radio. So let's talk a bit about Clubhouse, because I know you're super active, again, on all social media platforms. I'm going to put all the links in the blurb anyway. So let's start with this. Can you take us through the 5 steps to become a millionaire, and then the 3 additional steps to become a billionaire, and then the 2 more steps to become a trillionaire.
This is basically an inside joke within Clubhouse that you're kind of throwing out there a little bit, because in Clubhouse, there are a lot of different rooms, and some of the rooms have postured themselves as, multi-millionaires that can teach you how to do it in 5 easy steps. And well, first of all, my favorite joke is, how do you become a millionaire? You start as a billionaire and you buy a football club in England, and you'll soon become a millionaire. But I think the truth is that if you see, it's an interesting thing, this whole millionaire title, because people want to hear it. They want to hear about your success, because it's a bit like going to a gym and listening to someone who's got no muscles telling you how to lift weights. Like you look at them like, they're telling me how to lift weights, and look at them, they're all scrawny and, don't look like they've ever lifted a weight in their lives. And so there's some credibility issue. And I think if I told you I was broke and hadn't made it, then why would you listen to me? I would just caveat that some of the most interesting and insightful people are people that are broke today that tried something. And they've got a lot to teach. But unfortunately, in the society we're living in, with the Instagram world and Instagram feed, and everyone showing off their Ferraris and so on, that's kind of what people initially need to see. They need to have the image